If you've noticed in the past couple years, there have been a number of 50th anniversary commemorations for one thing or another. And so I'm kind of going to throw one of mine on the pile here. I was always a shy kid growing up and what they used to call a late bloomer. And so at this time, I'm in my sophomore year of college, and I had not kissed a girl at that point. I'd been on some dates, but they had all ended platonically. We agreed to be friends, not necessarily with each other. But then a buddy set me up with a blind date, and I met the girl in the lobby of the girls' dormitory on campus, and she made an impression on me. You see, these were the late 60s, and her style was sort of the early 50s. Think Lois Lane in the old Superman series. But we went off to it was a college mixer off campus because this was a church-affiliated university, and all of the parties had to be off campus where God couldn't see us. And it was a pleasant evening, and brought her back, and we parked in the circular driveway in front of the dormitory because they had an 11 o'clock curfew. That's when they locked the door. So there were a lot of cars there as everybody tried to get in the last couple minutes before they made a mad dash for the door. And the conversation was kind of winding down when she leaned over and kissed me, which I thought, my goodness. Now, I have always been slow to adopt to new things, but this was like dropping a duck in a pond. I mean, I hit the water and was paddling like crazy, figuratively speaking, you know. And when we separated to look at our watches, remembering the curfew, she, expressed. I told her that this was the first time I had kissed someone, and she expressed some surprise that I'd done so well with so little preparation. So of course I saw her again and again and again. For the last 3 months of the spring semester there, we went out probably every weekend. And I think in that time we saw one movie. It was A Man and a Woman, great date movie by the way. And the rest of the time we would just find a place to park, and we would practice my new skills. Now, when I say that, you have to know we did not touch a single button, hook, zipper, anything. This was all lip on lip, kissing and cuddling type thing, and we do it for a couple hours at a time, and then I'd take her back home or back to the dorm. Now, it was great, and it was good because we were in perfect harmony and sync with each other. We knew what we were doing without having to say anything. It was just a magical time. Looking back now, from 50 years on, I was making 3 big mistakes. And number one was that since this was the first girl I kissed, I tended to look at it that way, like it was the first in a series was going to happen of other romances yet to come, and that is no way to enter any activity, whether it's a job or whatever. You got to go dive in and see where it goes. So I had that. The other was that in my innocence and ignorance, I had the feeling that in those romances yet to come, the other ladies would be equally passionate and compatible if properly motivated. And I have never been so wrong about anything in my life. The third was that since we were so good at the nonverbal stuff, we didn't talk very much. And it would have been nice if we'd found out that we had something else in common with each other, but we didn't, so that was kind of sad, in retrospect, of course. Now, as we're getting to the end of the term, I began to think, looking at the summer when we both had other things to do, that it was time to move things up to the next level. And by that, I don't mean finding out what kind of music she liked. It had to do with finding out what was behind those buttons and hooks and other things. So, again, we hadn't talked about it, but I had the distinct impression she did not want to have sex in the car. And And to tell the truth, I couldn't work out the ergonomics of how that would work anyway. So I said we were going, I invited her on a picnic. And since she was in the dorm and I was a commuting student coming from home, I said I'd do everything. And I fried a chicken. I used my mother's recipe where you apply the breading in a paper bag and you shake it up. As some of you probably know what that's about. And I had made potato salad, brownies from scratch, iced tea. I mean, the drinking age was 18 in those days, but we'd never talked about alcohol, and I didn't want to throw her a curve and distract things. But the heart of the plan was that I knew the most romantic picnic spot in the whole tri-state area. And it was what I referred to as a secret park, because I'd never been to the main entrance. Didn't even know the name of the place. A friend had showed it to me by walking in from the back. So I bring the girl and all the fixings, and we came along this 2-lane blacktop, woods on both sides of the road. There's no parking space and there's no sign. You just have to kind of know from the configuration of the shrubbery where to pull off on the shoulder. And then there's no path. So we got our stuff and we're pushing through the branches and past the bushes and avoiding the big spider webs that are hanging up there. And after about 30 yards, we break through into this little jewel of a clearing. It's obviously been well maintained. It was just beautiful. The floor of it was packed earth, sand colored, without a leaf or a blade of grass on it. It was all flat. And then over here you had a pond with a little spring-fed waterfall on coming down the rocks. And then behind there was a shelter, 4 poles on a roof, same earthen floor, but it was just immaculately kept. And so we marveled at that a little bit, and then we spread our blanket down on the next to the pond, and we ate. She liked my chicken, or the fact that I knew how to cook. I didn't want to get into the details there, and we ate, and then we stretched out on the blanket, which was the first time we'd ever stretched out on anything together. So that was kind of nice. And we started doing what we did best. And as the feelings were building and everything, it was all getting good, I began to wonder, to think, even though I had never seen another person in this park, there was always the chance that just as we were getting intimate, some random hiker might stumble onto us and just ruin the whole day. And then, as if in answer to my worries, Mother Nature helped out, and the sky opened up and it began to rain. And this is not a sprinkling and it's not a shower. It was a full-blown cloudburst, and it was coming down, and we grabbed up all our stuff and we ran under that shelter. And we're standing there and we're looking out, and it's coming, the downpour is coming down. And without having to say anything, we knew there's nobody out there. Nobody's going to be out there in this rain. So we spread our blanket back out again, you know. And we got down. It took a little longer to get the motor running again, but we got it, and the juices are flowing, and everything's working. And then I realized that my plan was working absolutely perfectly. She was in the right mood. We were in the right place. Even the rain, which I hadn't thought about, was on my side. And my plans never work. There was a big red flag here. I mean, you know, now 50 years on looking back, I can tell you my whole life is due to happy accidents and the kindness of strangers. Plans don't work. So that caused me to think a little more about it. Now, mind you, I'm still doing what we're doing, but I'm thinking here that if this was only going to be the first of many girls, at some point we're going to have to break up. And if we did this, we would be doing it again and again and again, because that's how relationships work. You never go backwards. Once you do something, you have to do it again. And it would be harder on her if we broke up later, having done this. And I really liked this girl. I didn't want to hurt her. And at the same time, knowing myself, if we did this over and over and over again, I might not break up with her. And I wasn't sure that I was ready for that either. And so I just stopped, and I said, you know, I'm sorry, we can't do this. And she looked at me. She was kind of confused at that point. And later on, she told me she'd been completely on board with the whole thing, and was rather disappointed I'd pulled the plug and like that. We did continue to date during the rest of the summer. But it wasn't quite the same. And in the fall, neither one of us went back to the university. She went down to Atlanta to study nursing, and I came up to New York to study photography, and the whole relationship sort of fizzled. But looking back on it now, it's rather a good thing that my plan did not work, because I've had all kinds of adventures that I enjoyed, and for the past 22 years I have been married to a wonderful woman, and she is, according to plan, is going to be the last girl that I kiss. And I have a good feeling about that plan, because we talked it over. All right, thank you.